Epithelial tissues are most noted for forming either glands or membranes. Let's look at glands first. There are two major kinds of glands: endocrine gland and exocrine gland. Endo implies inside, that they secrete inside, whereas exocrine glands secrete outside. What that really means is that these secrete into the blood, whereas these secrete into a duct or tube or something like that that will then carry their secretions to their final destination. Most exocrine glands have then a secretory portion called the acinar portion, and then a duct that carries the secretions to their destination. As you can see from this illustration, exocrine glands can put these acini and ducts together in ways that range from very simple, like this tubular gland that you might see in the stomach, to something very complicated, like this tubuloacinar gland that I believe you would find in the mammary glands to make milk. There are also four kinds of epithelial membranes. The first and most obvious to anyone who's looking at your body is the cutaneous membrane, which is your skin. It is the keratinized stratified squamous epithelium we just talked about, and it is found it has underlying it a dense connective tissue that's full of glands and sensors and hair follicles and other structures that support the skin's mission to interface with the outside world. The next kind of membrane is a mucous membrane. Notice there's an extra O there. It's mucus, M-U-C-U-S, is the substance. Mucus, M-U-C-O-U-S, is the membrane. So a mucous membrane lines your hollow organ tracts. Okay, there are four hollow organ tracts in the body. There's the respiratory tract, your airways and lungs. There's the digestive tract, your long tube of digestive organs. There's your urinary tract, and then there's the reproductive tract, which is more of a thing in females than it is in males. But those are all lined in mucous membranes in the places, at least, where they interface with the outside world. Inside the body, there are also serous membranes, which are found around certain organs that move. Okay. There's a simple squamous epithelial membrane that forms a double-walled layer around these moving organs. So, for example, the heart, if you imagine that a heart actually looks like a Valentine's card, it's got this membrane that is a double-layered bag that is filled with a thin, watery fluid that lubricates the movement of the heart. So every time the heart goes ba-bump, 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 it has to move a little bit to do that pumping. And the pericardial membrane is what allows it to move smoothly. And then finally, there is the synovial membrane, which is a special membrane found in joint cavities. We'll study those much more in the next unit when we study joints, but for right now, all you need to know is that there's a cellular layer called the intimal layer, the layer that's in intimate contact with the joint, that produces a thick synovial fluid that has the interesting property that it can both be solid enough to bear weight and fluid enough to lubricate joint movement. This textbook figure shows representative examples of each type of membrane. There are mucous membranes in the respiratory tract and the digestive tract. There are serous membranes around the lungs as well as around the heart. There are cutaneous membranes found, well, there's a cutaneous membrane found all over your skin. And then there are synovial membranes found in the joint cavity of each of your major movable joints. All right, now let's turn our attention to at least knowing the classes and types of connective, muscular, and nervous tissues. Connective tissues have relatively few cells, as shown in this diagram, and a great deal, usually, of extracellular matrix filling in that space with fibers and uh, a kind of clear, mushy substance we call ground substance. Connective tissues proper are the ones that kind of are a catch-all category. They sometimes fill space in and around organs. Sometimes they make room for special structures and special cell types. Sometimes they physically connect different organs together or join parts of the same organ. They typically provide blood supply for other organs as well, or other tissue types as well. They can be subdivided into loose connective tissues where that extracellular matrix has fewer fibers and more ground substance, and dense connective tissues that have more fibers and less ground substance. As you might imagine, loose connective tissues are more squishy, more fluid, not fluid, but more gel like, gelatinous, whereas dense connective tissues are going to be tougher and more have more physical strength to them. Supporting connective tissues, on the other hand, play a very clear role in both supporting your weight and protecting your soft tissue structures. These can be subdivided into cartilages, which have a semi-solid matrix, and bone, which has a very solid calcium-based matrix. Finally, two connective tissues are actually completely fluid: blood and lymph. You may wonder why those count as connective tissues. Well, A, it's because connective tissue is kind of a catch all category, but B, blood can be thought of as connecting various parts of the body as it flows through your circulatory system, as does lymph when it flows through your lymphatic system. We'll study these tissues in great detail in A&P2, so I'm not going to say much more about them right now. There are three kinds of muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue is long, consists of long, thin cells called fibers that have multiple nuclei because they're formed from the fusion of many, many smaller cells in development. They primarily are responsible for moving your skeleton or supporting your posture while you're not moving. And they're found attached generally to bones, though sometimes they attach to skin, as in the example of like your facial expression muscles. Cardiac muscle tissue is found in exactly one place in the body, the heart. Many people think because there's muscle tissue in the heart must be a muscle, but it's not considered part of the muscular system. It's its own system. It's the cardiovascular system. Cardiac muscle cells are branched and short, unlike the long tubular skeletal muscle cells. And unlike skeletal muscle cells, which contract only when your nervous system tells them to, cardiac muscle tissue has a mind of its own. It contracts basically in an autorhythmic kind of way. Smooth muscle tissue is another animal entirely. Not really, we're still human, but anyway, it's a different kind of muscle. It doesn't have these little striations like skeletal and cardiac muscle have, and that's why we call it smooth. And it's not long, straight cells or even long, short branch cells. It's these little pointy ended, what some people call spindle shaped cells. I think it looks kind of like a squashed football myself. At any rate, these are little long, thin, tapered at the end cells that form a mesh with each other and are under nervous system control or sometimes hormonal control, but it's involuntary control. You can't think, um, I want my blood vessels to constrict right now. Uh, Somebody who has asthma really wishes they could think, I really want my airways to dilate right now, but you can't. You have to take an inhaler and let the artificial hormone in the inhaler do its job. The fourth type of tissue is nervous tissue, and it doesn't really have subtypes. All nervous tissue everywhere consists of neurons, electrically active cells, surrounded by these supportive glial cells. We'll get into the structure and function of neurons in quite a bit of detail in the last unit of A&P1. Now that we've learned the four tissue types, let's look at one example of how they all fit together. We see here a chunk of stomach, and the stomach has a thin layer here of epithelial cells at the top. You can see that zoomed in greatly over here on the side. And it also has these gastric glands, which are also epithelium, coming down into this area here. Those epithelial structures are supported by dense connective tissue. And that dense connective tissue also includes, as we've talked about before, lots of blood vessels and also nervous tissue that kind of just passes through the connective tissue. Then there are three layers of smooth muscle, 1, 2, 3, that allow the stomach to do its work, to contract and squish and to churn your food and then push it out of the stomach. And finally, there's a serous membrane that surrounds the whole stomach, which has both a connective tissue layer and a epithelial cell layer. And that concludes our first installment of histology class. Look for lectures on connective tissues, muscle tissues, and nervous tissue in detail later in the class. But for now, we're going to move on to our integument, the skin, the hair, and the nails. See you next time.